In this chapter, chapter 7, one of the things we're going to do is add to our list of identities. So we're going to start with a review of the fundamental trigonometric identities. Okay, so we have our Pythagorean identities. Sine squared, I'll use theta, plus cosine squared theta equals 1. We can also rewrite that as cosine squared theta equals 1 minus sine squared theta, right? If you were to subtract the sine squared from both sides, or you could write sine squared theta equals 1 minus cosine squared theta. Now, these alternate forms here, we use those sometimes, so it's a good idea to be able to recognize those. We also have the Pythagorean identities where if you divided the original by sine squared, you'd come up with 1 plus cotangent squared theta equals cosecant squared theta. And then if you took the original, this one right there at the top, and you divided by cosine squared, you'd have tangent squared theta plus 1, that's a plus 1, equals secant squared theta. And so we use those as well, okay? So I think they kind of consider this one and this one and this one the main Pythagorean identities, and then those other two forms that I have over here are like alternate forms of that first one. Okay, but it's a really good idea to be able to recognize when you have tangent squared and secant squared, or cotangent squared and cosecant squared, oh, there might be a Pythagorean identity involved. Okay, the even odd identities, we have two that are even. They're cosine. So cosine of negative theta is equal to just cosine theta. And then the reciprocal of cosine is secant. So secant negative theta is equal to secant theta. Those are the two even identities. The other four are odd. And so you have sine of negative theta is equal to negative sine theta. And the reciprocal cosecant of negative theta is equal to the opposite of cosecant theta. I should be saying opposite probably. And tangent negative theta is equal to the opposite of tangent theta. And cotangent of the opposite of theta is equal to the opposite of cotangent theta. So those are the odd ones. So 2 even ones and 4 odd ones. All right, the reciprocal identities. So I'll just start with sine. So sine theta is equal to 1 over cosecant theta. And likewise, cosecant theta is equal to 1 over sine theta. And then cosine theta is equal to 1 over secant theta. And secant theta is equal to 1 over cosine theta. And then tangent theta is equal to 1 over cotangent theta. And cotangent theta is equal to 1 over tangent theta. So at this point, you might be saying, wow, there's a lot of these. There are, and there are more to come. These are just kind of some of the basic ones. The more you use them, the more you'll get used to them. But, we're just going to keep reviewing them and using them, and that will help us. Okay, the quotient identities, we know that tangent theta is equal to sine theta over cosine theta. And then cotangent theta is equal to the reciprocal of that, or cosine theta over sine theta. Okay, so those are the fundamental identities we have so far. So it's good to be familiar with them. Eventually, after we get some more identities, I'll provide you a sheet that has them on it. But good to focus on some of these. We'll be using them throughout this section.